Welcome back. So, today we're going to learn how we categorize aliens. And we'll talk about this in the lecture part. But the whole idea of kingdom and phyla and all that other sort of stuff really probably isn't going to work with aliens. They're just not going to fit neatly into those categories that we've established for Earth. We need something more general that we can use for classifying. And the most general way that we can do this is based on their metabolism. So these metabolic classifications are going to be the key for figuring out the different types of alien life forms that we might encounter. Also, the metabolism gives us an idea of not only what they eat and what they breathe, but also gives us an idea of how much free energy they have. So if the life form's metabolic reaction only produces a small amount of energy, they're not going to have enough left over to do a lot of active tasks like hunting and chasing things. Instead, they're more likely going to be more sedentary. They're going to be gatherers. They're going to be farmers, things like that. On the other hand, if they have a lot of extra energy being produced by the metabolism, well, now they're free to burn that energy, and they're going to be more likely to be aggressive hunters because they're going to be able to compete better if they're more aggressive than if they're more passive from that. So by looking at the metabolism, we can get an idea not only of what they eat and breathe, but also what their technology and their lifestyle is going to be. Let's get started. Okay, so as I said, those traditional biological classifications probably aren't going to work for aliens because they're alien. They're not going to be like the things that we have here on Earth. There will be analogs, maybe things that are similar, but they're not going to fit nicely. Most of these classifications that were come up that most of modern biology uses is they've looked at a whole bunch of things and looked for their similarity and compared them. They haven't started from any kind of base theory and then said, okay, based on this model, you would fit in here, and based on this model, you would fit in here. So we need that model if we're going to learn how to classify these aliens. So we do know that all life forms must utilize energy, no matter what kind of life form it is. One of the definitions of life is that it's using energy. So this becomes that model that we can use to start classifying things. So in addition to using energy, they also need a source of carbon to build their proteins, to build their amino acids and their cells and their muscle structure and all of that to keep going. Now, they may not actually be based on carbon. We mentioned that silicon is a possibility that they could use, but since carbon is going to be by far the most common, we'll assume that it's carbon for this discussion. But you can replace that with whatever they happen to be based on. So two things, just those two things, are going to allow us to classify all forms of life, including alien life, how they get their energy and how they get their carbon. So for the energy source, there are really two possibilities. They could get it directly from the star, and so we would use the prefix photo for that to mean that they're getting the light directly from the sun. Chemo, the prefix chemo, means that they're getting it from chemical reactions. So either they're taking in food, and then that chemical reactions in their bodies are breaking that food down to release the energy, or perhaps they're taking it directly from the environment. Their carbon source then can come from two places as well. An autotroph gets its carbon directly from the environment, so it absorbs it directly from the environment. It doesn't need any other being in order for that to work. Whereas a heterotroph gets its carbon from other organic compounds, which is a nice way of saying it eats. So it has got to eat something else, right? And by combining these two prefixes with the two suffixes and all the different possible combinations, you can actually classify every type of life form that exists. So let's look at a plant here. So a plant gets its energy from sunlight. So is that a photo or chemo? Okay, now it gets its carbon from the environment. It takes it in mostly from carbon dioxide. So that's where its carbon comes from. Some people think, oh, well, it takes its carbon out of the roots. Actually, it doesn't. It gets most of its carbon from the atmosphere, from the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So is that going to be an autotroph or a heterotroph? So its classification is then it is a photoautotroph. Because it gets its energy from sunlight, autotroph because it gets its carbon directly from the environment. So all plants then are photoautotrophs. Now I'm going to take a little side note here. Somebody once asked me, well, what is a Venus flytrap? That grabs bugs because it's eating, right? And we puzzled over that one for a little bit, but it turns out that's also a photoautotroph because it's not getting carbon from the bugs. it's getting nitrogen from the bugs. So Venus flytraps grow in nitrogen poor soil, and they evolved a way to trap the bugs and then dissolve them so that they can extract the nitrogen from that. But their carbon source is still from the atmosphere, from carbon dioxide, just like all plants. So they're still photoautotrophs. All right, humans. So humans get our energy source from chemical reactions. Whenever you eat something, your food, as it digests, that's a chemical reaction, and that's what's producing the energy that's powering your cells. Your carbon source then is that food, which is pretty convenient because we're getting both our energy and the carbon from the same location. So pause the video and think about it. What would this humans be? How would humans be classified? Well, humans are going to be a chemoheterotroph. Chemo, because we get our energy source from food or from digesting the food. And then the carbon source is the food itself. We have to eat other things. And so we are chemoheterotrophs. Now, when we talk about respiration, this is the actual reaction that is giving us the energy. So this is the process of metabolism. So it's going to take in fuel, and then it's going to extract the energy and carbon from that, and then the waste products have to go out. All respiration reactions involve two inputs that we call reactants, one of which is an oxidant, and the other is a reductant. Now, they are different. One is accepting electrons, one is donating electrons. That process of accepting and donating electrons is what's producing the energy. It's not that important for what we're doing here that you understand the electron transfer. Just know that some things are oxidants and some things are reductants. So I can't have two oxidants together. That won't work. They won't react. I can't have two reductants together. That won't work. They won't react. I need one oxidant and one reductant. And so what we're going to be giving you is we're going to be giving you some tables of oxidants and reductants that we're going to be using in this class. So we get two inputs. We always get two waste products as a result. One, the oxidant has a waste product that it forms, and the reductant has a waste product that it forms after those electrons are transferred. So we often use this type of diagram to indicate how much energy that we're getting from that. So the reductant has a potential, this is in volts, and it's like a potential energy. It's a stored energy. And so here you see that it's getting negative 0.43. Most of these potentials are going to be negative for here. And then the oxidant, in this case, they're using oxygen, so it has 0.82 volts. So the potential is the potential energy divided by the amount of the substance. So this way, I don't have to know how much of that particular substance I have, and so I can use the same description for elephants and ants from that. So we're going to talk about the potential, and I want you to think about it as being energy because it works like energy, even though technically it's not energy. But the difference in these potential inputs tells me how much energy we're going to get out of it. Now, again, it's not technically energy, so we're going to call it NRG. Yeah, you heard it here first. So you can see where it is. But if you think of it as being energy, even though it's not technically energy, it works the same way. And you'll find that that'll work out for you. So by looking, the bigger the difference, the further apart the reductant and the oxidant's potentials are, the greater the amount of energy that you're going to get. So the formula for figuring out the energies, you always take the oxidant potential minus the reductant potential. Okay. So if that result, so in this case would be 0.82 minus a negative 0.48. If the energy is positive, then the reaction produces energy. So the life form can actually use that energy for its activities. If it's negative, then there has to be an external source of energy. And you may think, well, that will never happen. But we'll talk about one example where it does. If they have a positive energy, then we say that the reaction is spontaneous. It doesn't need anything else for it to work. So you put these two things together, they're going to combine, and you're going to produce energy, and the life form is going to be alive. Now, we're going to figure out some of these respiration reactions. In order to do that, there's some important rules you need to know. None of the waste products can also be reactants. So if I react and just use the other carbon dioxide and oxygen, and I want to combine those together, the waste products cannot be either carbon dioxide or oxygen. that violates this rule. So whatever I put in for reactants, I need to get something different for the waste products. And you'll see that that's going to eliminate a couple of reactions when we get in there. All right, so here's our table of oxidants. So we've got carbon dioxide that has a waste product of sugar, carbon dioxide that has a waste product of methane. The details of how that reaction goes, we're not going to worry about. This is non-organic chemistry class. We have a sulfate ion that produces hydrogen sulfide, that's rotten egg gas. Oxygen that has a waste product of water. Then on the reductants, we've got 4 different reductants we're going to look at. Sugar, which has a waste product of carbon dioxide. Hydrogen, which has a waste product of water. Iron, that has a waste product of iron 3+, and water that has a waste product of oxygen. Notice that water is a reductant, and over here it's a waste product. That means I can't put these in the same reaction. I can't have the reductants have a waste product that is the same as one of the oxidant or the reductant from that. Okay. So let's take an example. I think that'll make it a whole lot easier. So what I want you to do is go through all the possible combinations here, and I want you to find the combination that will release the most energy. So you get to pick one of the oxidants, one of the reductants, figure out which combination, oxidant potential minus reductant potential, remember, gives us the largest positive energy. And then I also want you to write down what waste products are produced in that reaction. Remember, if the waste products are here, they can't be also on this side of the equation or it's not going to work. Pause the video, go through some combinations, work that out. All right, here's what you should have found. You should have found that when I combine oxygen with sugar, which produces a waste product of water and carbon dioxide, I get the most amount of energy. I get 1.25 volts per reaction from that. So this is the most energetic. And this is called aerobic respiration. And this is actually what your body is powered on. So when we talk about doing aerobics, well, okay, that's not quite the right term for it, because aerobic respiration means you combine oxygen and sugar and you get carbon dioxide and water out of it. You are literally a sugar-based life form. And this is probably why sugar tastes good to you, because there is an evolutionary advantage. The more sugar you take in, the more energy you've got stored and is available for use. And so you're more likely to be able to, run from that lion and still be able to survive to have babies from that. But basically, sugar is what you use in your food to provide your energy from that. Oxygen, this is why you have to breathe. You breathe in the oxygen so that it reacts with the sugar. The waste products that are produced from that are carbon dioxide, which is a gas, so you breathe that out, and water, which you pee out. That's basically what's going on. So aerobic respiration is the fundamental reaction. This is what's making human life forms have the incredible amount of energy we get. That's actually a very high amount of energy. As you can see, it's the highest we can get from all these choices. But it's not the only choice. There are some life forms use anaerobic respiration, and one of the most common ones produces methane as a waste product. So the microbes that live in your digestive tract use anaerobic respiration. So instead of getting oxygen, they're using something else, but the waste product they produce is methane. So what I want you to do is pause the video. You're restricted in your choice of oxidants because we want the waste product to be methane. So there's only one oxidant that's going to do that. I want you to choose the reductant and the oxidant then that produce the highest amount of energy from that. Pause the video, do that now. Okay, ready to go? So the oxidant obviously has to be carbon dioxide in order to produce methane. And the reductant that produces the highest energy then is going to be hydrogen, and its waste product is going to be water from that. So, and then together though, they're only producing 0.18 volts. That means that this is much lower energy than you can get from aerobic respiration. This is called methanogenesis because it makes methane. And so that's why these microbes are not going to be terribly mobile. They're going to pretty much stay in one spot. But here they're happy to take in the carbon dioxide and hydrogen from your body, and they will produce methane and water as a result, and they're able to survive and reproduce. There are a number of other possible reactions, and some of these that we see like on the ocean floor and things like that. All of these will be available to the aliens that you might find. So you'll figure out, okay, what gases are available in this particular alien world, and that's going to give me a clue of what kind of respiration they're using, because they're going to take best advantage of the resources that they have on their planet. Once you figured out the respiration, now you know how much energy their cells are producing, and so now you have an idea of how much free energy the organism, the aliens, have. Now, it is possible to run aerobic respiration backwards, as it turns out. If I take carbon dioxide and water, which, remember, carbon dioxide and water are the waste products from aerobic respiration, then you're going to find that the waste products from that is oxygen and sugar, but it requires energy. That means this won't happen on its own. You have to have some sort of way to input the energy. Well, this is photosynthesis, and this is why plants must have sunlight in order to function, because their respiration takes in carbon dioxide and water and gives off oxygen and sugar. So the oxygen we can actually breathe, and the sugar we can actually eat. But they need that extra energy source, and in this case, that extra energy source is coming directly from the sun. All right, so now if we're going to try to detect these alien life forms on another planet, most of the time you're not going to be able to see the life forms on the surface of the planet. I mean, even in orbit, you can't see life forms on the surface of the Earth. So certainly we're not going to be able to see them, many, many parsecs away. How the reactants are generally going to be used up. So they're getting used up by the life form. So you're not going to see those in the atmosphere in most cases. The waste products, though, are going to remain on the planet and in the atmosphere. So these waste products, then, once they're in the atmosphere, they can be detected from space. So the best biosignatures, and these are ones that tell us there is life on that planet, are wastes that are only produced by organic processes. They're not produced by inorganic processes such as volcanoes and things like that. So what we're going to do for your practice then, we've got the oxidant and the reactant table and the reductant table here. We're going to have you find what are the best biosignatures. And so it's going to take you pretty much step by step through it. So remember, we're going to need those biosignatures to be a gas, otherwise they won't be in the atmosphere. We're not going to detect them. And so we also want them to be a result of a spontaneous reaction. And that's going to narrow it down even further. So take a look at this and then see if you can work out which elements then make the best biosignatures. And you'll find that this is why NASA is working on ways to detect these things from a distance. Okay, so this has been one of the most important lessons that we've had so far, because just by knowing, we can look at the planet, we can look at the star system, we can look at the planet's atmosphere, we can tell what's present, what gases are present there. That tells us what types of metabolism are occurring on that planet. Since we know what kind of metabolism, we can calculate how much energy it's producing. Since we know how much energy, we know, are these people going to be a threat or not? Are they aggressive, or are they more, they don't have enough free energy, so they're going to be gatherers and things like that. So figuring this out is going to be the first step in identifying the characteristics of these life forms. In the next lesson, I'm going to show you how you can take all of the characteristics we've learned, everything from the star all the way down to its respiration, to actually get an idea of what these things are going to look like, what these aliens are going to actually look like. And this will be the last part of your project. So we'll see you then.